dysfunctional relationship with my pancreas. When I was only 18 months old, my body decided it was time to join the Dead Pancreas Society. If you don't already know, I'm talking about type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, also known as juvenile diabetes, is defined as, quote, a chronic condition in which the pancreas produces little or no insulin, end quote. The consequences of severe lack of insulin include frequent urination, extreme hunger, unintentional weight loss, irritability, mood changes, fatigue, weakness, and blurred vision. If you have any sign of these symptoms, you may be diabetic. Although it is most commonly seen in younger people, diabetes can develop in adults as well. The cause of diabetes is that the body's immune system attacks insulin-producing cells in the pancreas called beta cells. The reason for this is unclear, but scientists believe that environmental factors and genetics play a major role in it. Given how common diabetes is, it's hard to believe that insulin is the sixth most expensive liquid on the planet. Insulin, the hormone that diabetics lack, and while it's not a cure, it's a life-saving medication for diabetics. Its whole job is to break down the glucose and the carbohydrates you eat, and then use them and store them for later function. Insulin is helpful in regulating the blood glucose levels, but when it is overproduced, it causes hypoglycemia. If it is underproduced, it causes diabetes. The body needs sugar, but can't use the sugar without insulin. It acts like a key and unlocks the cell to allow sugar to enter. When sugar isn't going to be used immediately, insulin helps it to be stored in the liver for later use, when exercising or in between meals. For diabetics, the body won't release the sugar when necessary. Because of this, the body can't do so naturally. By manually giving insulin, diabetics can pretend to have a pancreas and allow their body to unlock energy from carbs. When diabetics take higher amounts of insulin than what was necessary, it can result in low blood sugar. I absolutely hate low blood sugar. It makes me feel awful. It has different effects on different diabetics, but personally, I cannot focus on anything. I start acting weird, my hands get really shaky, I get overly nervous about simplistic things, sometimes I look pale, but mostly I just really want to lay down and drink my soda or Skittles, sometimes both. Other diabetics can experience similar symptoms, but others may include blurry vision, rapid heartbeat, headache, dizziness, sweating, difficulty sleeping, and skin tingling. In extreme cases, they could even have a stroke, seizure, or go into a coma. There are some diabetics who don't even notice when their blood sugar drops. While this can be easily remedied by eating high concentrations of sugar, like candy or sugary drinks, one must be careful because high blood sugar is just as bad. High blood sugar has tremendous long-term damaging effects. In fact, frequent high blood sugar over long periods of time can cause serious damage to the eyes, blood vessels, kidneys, nerves, skin, and heart. People lose limbs because of long-term damage and even go blind. These extremes in blood glucose levels are what diabetics try to avoid, and there are different types of technology used to help maintain proper levels. Most technology used for taking insulin is separated into two categories: shots and pumps. Shots are usually what people start out using, but are beneficial if you don't like the feel or appearance of a pump. There are different types of shots that hold the insulin needed, such as long-acting or short-acting insulin. Long-acting insulin is a shot you take once a day to keep your BG from naturally rising, and short-acting insulin is what you take after meals to prevent your blood sugar from shooting up suddenly. Pumps are the more advanced piece of technology and make control significantly easier, but some look like corded walkie-talkies. There are many different brands of pumps that all have their own benefits. The most common is the corded pump, but there are also non-corded pumps called patch pumps. I use the patch pump because I don't like the cord and I like the discreetness of it. Pumps work by giving small amounts of insulin each hour called a basal rate. This acts similar to the long-acting insulin, except with the pump, rather than getting the same amount of insulin all day, you can change the amount of insulin given in each hour of the day. For example, if the diabetic usually has a high blood sugar overnight, then they might increase their basal rate during the time they're asleep compared to when they're awake. And if the diabetic exercises every day at a certain time, it would be beneficial to them to lower their basal rate for that time. Another piece of technology is the continuous glucose monitor, CGM for short. These devices allow diabetics to monitor blood glucose levels 24/7, which is a crucial part in making sure they maintain the level they want. It is very helpful when looking for trends in high or low blood sugar so they can change their basal rates accordingly. Recently, there's a new type of corded pump that combines the pump and the CGM so they can communicate to each other. Basically, the CGM will tell the pump the person's BG is too high and needs to give some insulin and lower the amount of insulin when given the BG is too low. With all these options, there are several different brands with different advantages and disadvantages which allow people to pick what's best for them. Diabetes is a difficult disease and can be stressful at times. For a lot of us, it helps to go to diabetic camps and work with other diabetics to learn new tricks and manage their diabetes and have a safe place to actually have fun without worrying about what their disease is limiting them to do. Over the past 8 years, I've attended Camp Kudzu for these reasons. Camp Kudzu is, quote, quote, an independent nonprofit organization that serves children and teens living with type 1 diabetes. They host different camps and retreats around the Georgia area, and provide a camp experience as well as instill management skills into its campers. The goal is to make each camper more independent when managing their diabetes. There are several different camp opportunities that allow kids to come as young as age 5, and when they get older, they can start volunteer as counselors. I look after the younger kids as well as teach them what they have learned. Camp has allowed me to meet tons of other kids my age with type 1 diabetes. I remember when I was younger going to camp and looking forward to seeing my friends, and I remember how excited I was to not be told I couldn't do something. The camp life is pretty simple. It only lasts for a week. We wake up around 7:30 to get ready for the day and then go to breakfast. Then we have activities during the day that are split up by age. At different parts of the day, we go to learn about diabetes management and tips on how to control our blood sugar at home. At night, there's a camp-wide activity that usually lasts an hour, and then we go back to the cabin to get ready for bed. This year, I was given the chance to be a counselor in training. This meant that I followed around a younger cabin as well as it is in the name, trained to be a counselor. It is not an easy job being a counselor because you are now responsible for looking after the younger kids who need to help control and regulate their diabetes. You have to help them with keeping up with their blood sugar and make sure they don't go too low or too high, make sure they go see the clinician for insulin, help them count the amount of carbs they ate, and much more. Because of the contribution the volunteers make to camp, these children are learning behaviors that are needed to handle diabetes, and they will ultimately be more independent after each year they spend at camp. Being a CIT this summer has allowed me to come full circle with camp. I watched these kids try and figure out what was going on with their disease, and I remember the confusion I felt when I was their age. It made me happy to see them at camp and not have to worry about what was going to happen to them because of their disease. According to the American Camp Association, summer camp is a valuable experience that aids children in maturing socially, emotionally, intellectually, morally, and physically. For a newly diagnosed diabetic, it can be a confusing and stressful adjustment. Camp can help the diabetic adjust to the new style of life. A friend of mine named Jake Faccaccini, who became a diabetic at age 16, attended camp one month before being diagnosed. He told me before camp how he felt lost and confused about what was going on. I asked him how camp helped him transition into diabetes, and he told me that, quote, Camp Kudzu not only helped me learn how to manage my blood sugar, but gave me a lifelong connection to the new family. The people I have met and only have been with for 14 days out of my entire life have become an incredible support group to me and some of my closest friends. Camp helps people like Jake all the time. It provides them a community to lean on if they need help or somewhere to boast about their diabetes accomplishments because they know no one else will understand them. Now, 3 years later, Jake has no problem with his disease. He told me recently that, quote, a lot of people called me a stupid diabetic, but then I got into the Virginia Tech Honors Program, so now I know I'm an above-average intelligent diabetic at the least. Diabetes for me has been a rough experience, but a beneficial one nonetheless. It has allowed me to meet people from all over the place and helped me realize that nothing in life is free. Without camp, I know my control over my diabetes would be worse than it is now, and I'm proud of the lesson it's taught me. Thank you.